So for many, 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 many moons, at least for I don't know, 15 or 16 moons, I have been trying and trying and trying to find a reason to get White and Wang on the same show. And we finally have got this with Brian White, Brian Wang. Do you know that you can't even like short do it? You can't even do like Brian W and differentiate between them. It drives me crazy. But Brian, both Brian's, great to have you both on board. And then down below in another corner, we have the famous Bradford Ferguson, and that gives me three B's and only one R. So I don't know how this is going to work out. You guys are ganging up on me. But I will tell you that the subject matter for the show is wild and crazy because it was thought of by Brian Wang. And he's a
Yes.
futurist and he likes to think outside the box. And somehow he was looking at a picture, and all of a sudden the picture started to have new meaning to him. And Brian
Hmm.
called me and said, Randy, we need to do a show on this. So,
Yes.
Brian, take it away. What in the world did you figure out?
Okay. So the main thing is this photo from sources in China of the this is I guess from Grace Tao. So she released it a couple months ago, a month ago, when they said that 45% complete for the Shanghai Megapactory. And when I was looking at it, I realized that it was bigger than Lathrop. In particular, when you look at things like what looks like a semi truck, which can be about 72 feet long if you have a full size 48-foot trailer plus the front vehicle and stuff like that. In the United States, they tend to be 72 feet long, but other ones can be shorter, 60 some feet. So if it's 60 feet, then this thing, based on me measuring, how many millimeters it is on a blown up screen, looks like it could be about 700 feet by 1600. If it's slightly smaller, based on, again, I don't know exactly what kind of truck that is, then it might only be 600 by 1350, which is about, and also there's a building down below, in the
You're
in
talking
the
about
bottom here.
you're talking about only the top building, Brian, this one?
I'm only talking about only the top building. I'm
Okay.
only top building, right? And there's a building down below, and that is looking about like, I don't know, 300 feet by 300 feet or 250 by 250. So here is the rendering of what's supposed to be built. And it kind of flips over because it was things over on the left to right kind of thing was what the rendering of Tesla Shanghai is, Megapack Factory. So the land is definitely 200,000 square meters, because it's that many, hectares or whatever, 20 hectares of land. So then if you only covered half the land, then you'd be looking at 100,000 square meters. And that compares to, and there's a picture of the site versus where Giga Shanghai is. I tried to look at it on Google Maps and it not updated yet. I can't seem to find it. It's supposedly within 2 miles of it. So here, from the video of the Lathrop from Tesla, is the factory in Lathrop, which is on 700 Darcy Parkway. And then I put that up on the Google Maps, and Google Maps has a precise, like here's 100 feet or whatever. So this I can measure more precisely, and it's 373 feet by 1150, 1180. So about 440,000 square feet, 40,000 square meters, which is what Wikipedia sources say it is. So the 373, if we're in the 600 some to 700 some, we're looking at double the width and it's longer. So instead of 1180, it's 1350 to 1600. So I got an extra few hundred feet of length, and it is wider, perhaps double. I think it's pretty much aligning, whether it's a 600-ish or whatever, that because it's extra wide, you'd be able to not have walls stop. So you can then pack in, if this had 2 lines, you can pack in 4 lines into Shanghai. So that means, to me, at a minimum, we're looking at 80 gigawatt hours, fully built out. Plus, we don't know what the other two buildings are for, and that also helps it. I also think the building is taller than um, than um, than this building, the later building, the height of it. And then if you compare that to certain pictures here. The top one we can't tell, but from here it looks like it may be taller. Which in the other factories for cars, the um, the height of Austin, I think, is higher than Fremont, et cetera, because they went to a multi-layer, three-dimensional, doing more things to upper floors, dropping in battery packs kind of thing. So I think that may also be happening, which may or may not mean that they can then get 3 times the production out of it, which was there was a statement that Elon had, I think in Q1, where he said that Shanghai built out megapacks could be triple, but it was unclear if he was talking about triple including Lathrop or triple by itself, and they said at least double, which based on the size is something. So some several important factors I see here. One is that definitely Tesla Shanghai Megapack factory is not a cookie cutter copy of Lathrop. It is definitely bigger. It is not a cookie cutter copy. And then people who have made like Larry Goldberg made some projections about what would happen with the energy. And then he had it topping out at 159 gigawatt hours in 2028. And that was with him saying he was going to add in a few more 40 gigawatt hour factories. If the new size is 80 gigawatt hours, or if the next one becomes bigger at 120, then I see the ramp being far better and could go up to like 720 gigawatt hours in 2028 instead of the 160 because you're just building bigger factories going on. The other point I would make, and then we can discuss, is that all of the things around energy and megapack from Master Plan 3, here's another Larry Goldberg projection, was that $10 million per gigawatt hour per year to make them, so $400 million for Lathrop. If the same costing factors are in Shanghai, we're at 800 to 1.2 billion. 10 gigawatts of wind produces about 30 terawatt hours. That'd be about 10,000 megapacks. And then you have to replace them every 20 years, roughly. 1,000 gigawatt hours would equal 3,000 terawatt hours per year. If you did that over 6 years because of like AI demand, then we're looking at needing 1 million megapacks over 6 years, which if you divide by 6, then you might leave 8 large factories of demand for every terawatt hour of demand you have from AI, which may only be the demand once. I have some projections from semiconductor analysis about going to 2030, data centers needing in that 3,000 terawatt hour range, up from far lower amounts in 2024, and then possibly needing up to 8,000 terawatt hours. So these are all, again, big ballpark estimates because we don't know how fast it's building. There was a rumor that announcement, I think, from the head of North Dakota's government officials involved with data centers and things, mentioning that 2 $125 billion AI data centers were going into North Dakota, and that would need in the range of 2 to 5 gigawatt hours initially each, and then increase from there. North Dakota has 4 gigawatts of wind and is going to add another 6 gigawatts of wind. So, we're looking at, just in one state, a large amount. And then they also have a lot of natural gas to power that. So I think then also with the AI demand, Master Plan Part 3, published early last year, is out of date because it does not assume anything about AI demand. And AI demand would be global, and any AI demand data centers built in North America, Canada, and the United States would presumably not have much competition from China-made battery storage companies. So basically that's it. So growth looks like it's going to be at least twice as fast, and that will have material benefit from that. So now we can discuss and go back to the slides whenever.
So let me see if I can encapsulate this and see if I got it right. You can tell me if I got it right or wrong. You and I have gone over this a couple of times. So number one, you're suggesting that the TAM, which was already unbelievably huge, according to Elon, is even higher than it was before because the AI center wasn't included in the master plan. So there's massive, massive total addressable market for these batteries worldwide, not just in the United States, but all over the world where these data centers are going to be made. But you already needed them for the grid. You already needed them for all these other purposes that we've talked about for being able to support semi-truck charging, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, things we've talked about many times on this on my show. Then in addition, you're saying that the Shanghai plant looks like, just from the physical size of it, is that it is going to have way more capacity than the Lathrop plant, assuming that the largest building on that map that you showed us, or the diagram of the layout, that the largest building in that would be the building where the Megapacks would be made, which is 2 to 3 times larger than Lathrop, according to your information. So is that kind of where we are?
Yeah, that's basically summarized it, yes.
So what do you guys think? Does that look, Brian White, what do you think?
I'll go first on this one. So I would be inclined to believe that it is on the lower end of your estimate. I think the better measure than a semi truck would be a shipping container, because those are international, and a truck can be all kinds of different lengths. But I agree, it looks like it is clearly bigger. At the very least, it's wider. They wouldn't have made it shorter, so it does have more square footage. Would it surprise you to hear that Tesla's sandbagging numbers out of there? No, that's what they've done in China all along. So we could see bigger numbers on that. The other thing that you'd said, Brian, was that because it's a building that they didn't just move into, but built for purpose, not only could it have more lines, but it could have better optimized lines. I agree with that completely. If you know where your columns are, you don't have the kind of dead space you might otherwise face. I don't know that they would employ cubic space in the way they have with automobiles, because automobiles are a lot lighter, and bringing in things from cubic space when they weigh, 58,000 pounds, 82,000 pounds, it gets to be tricky. I appreciate Larry's numbers. Those are all great. What I'd be curious about, and not right now, but later in the discussion, is the residual income that we get as this business grows, because there's the maintenance fees, there's the ongoing royalties or auto bidder type things. And in the US, my concern for growing Megapack is a battery supply. These need LFPs. Tesla is installing their own LFP equipment that they purchased from CATL. But those, I believe, will go into cars, because with the cars, you get the $35 to $45 per kilowatt credit. And those credits, as far as I can tell, do not apply if they go into something that is not an automobile. But if you want to import the batteries, those are now going to have a massive tariff, just like solar panels or cars. So I'd be curious to know the fate of where cells would come from in the US, if anyone has any thoughts on that.
Bradford, what do you think?
Well, from the sounds of it, it sounds like maybe Tesla's going to be importing more equipment from CATL to build more LFPs. Like once they get this line going in Gigafactory, Nevada, maybe they'll do even more if the tariffs end up going up from batteries coming from China. One thing that's stood out for me, Brian, is the that dream picture of the Megapack factory in Shanghai. There's these small buildings. Maybe you can pull it up. There's these
Yep.
small buildings on the side that the Megapacks come out. So I'm gonna nerd out for a moment here. And essentially on Lathrop, there's 2 bay doors that the Megapacks come out, and there's at each bay door there's 3 conveyor belts that are these super heavy duty conveyor belts. So that you see right next to the building, the main building, there's these 2 small buildings. It doesn't make sense to me those buildings are there unless it's like for security or something. I'm guessing the bay doors would be to the left. So like the closest corner to us, viewing the picture, that's where those the megapacks would come out. Um, that's just something that stood out to me, and I'm guessing there's just room for two bay doors there, but maybe there's more. But what I would say, and you can stop sharing now, is um, I'm guessing that the throughput from Shanghai is going to be much higher. The middle conveyors, I think, are going to be hard for them to feed. Generally, you have these really heavy battery modules that are essentially the size of like 3 car batteries or something like that. Um, and they're very heavy, and they load them in with this, I don't know. I call it a forklift, but I think Tesla people call it bento box or something when they load it in. Yeah, I'm curious how it all works, because like you have all these conveyor belts in the middle, but you have like this very heavy thing that's getting loaded into the megapacks. Um, yeah, I think this is exciting to see confirmation of what Elon is saying is a doubling or tripling of megapack capacity. And I'm really curious to see if Tesla is sandbagging with Lathrop's capacity. At one point, we thought it was going to be 80 gigawatt hours, and they've kind of set our expectations down to 40. So I'm curious if Lathrop ends up being 80 and Shanghai ends up being 160. I wouldn't count on that, but um, I wouldn't be totally surprised by it either.
So when I first saw this layout, I listened to Brian's entire explanation. Then I started playing around in my mind with what are the other two buildings, the long skinny building and the little kind of square building in the corner. And so the first thought that came to my mind was, well, maybe this little square building in the corner, this one over here,
The
maybe
upper left, yeah.
upper left, that one, can you see my cursor? Maybe not.
I can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, now I can see one.
Okay.
I put a cursor.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So maybe that building is for dry cathodes. Maybe this long building here is actually for making the 4680 batteries that might go into it. Maybe not. Then I flipped the whole idea, and I thought, well, what if this is actually the Megapactory right here, the long skinny one.
Hmm.
This one over here is possibly um, 4680 manufacturing or something of that nature, but that the big one is actually for making cyber cabs. Because we've been wondering where the heck are they going to put the cyber cab manufacturing, and that kind of looks like more of the traditional way that they design their manufacturing for the cars. Anyway, just a few thoughts to throw out there in case you guys have any crazy.
I love the idea. I don't think that's it. I do think it's possible that one of these buildings is going to be making cells, but maybe not on day one, which maybe that long skinny one would be eventually a cell building, which is why they're not building it yet, and only the larger, slightly squarer one, and the little building. So I'm not sure, but yeah, this is going to have some pretty good capacity.
Somebody had mentioned, I don't remember who, that the little square building in the corner has a bunch of fans on the top, some kind of reason to need to expel.
If you look at it, if you pull up pictures of Giga Shanghai, you will find buildings at the south end of the property that look a lot like that, and they're just utility buildings. It's just where they originally had all the works for the buildings, the all the climate control and utilities and whatnot. We're in a building that looked very much like that with similar cooling on the roof. So it could just be a facilities building.
Right. So then that would mean that there's less space inside the main building, assuming that the one with the cells in the main building, less space used for other things. So it's like we're fully dedicated, in that main building, because the Lathrop, one building um, hadn't separated that out. So presumably you're using space inside that isn't fully dedicated to making things.
Exactly.
Um,
And
yeah.
what I could share from Lathrop is you could always hear the HVAC when you're at Lathrop. It's constantly running, and occasionally you're hearing these, and it's not necessarily coming from the semis. You're hearing this release of gases. So there's like some pressurized gas that they're using too.
Is there some other thing that they're doing with the batteries in terms of conditioning or doing other stuff? Like, do they go out like the Megapack's fully charged? Like, would that other long thin building be for some kind of holding post um, processing type thing where they're like where they need to do some work? Because currently, I think they're just sticking them outside, right? When they get done, they just come out and they sit in a holding parking lot kind of thing when the packs are done. They often like have these large photos of things where it's just like they're
Yeah,
like
so the on this picture, the mega packs are on the right, and everything else next to the building is semi trailers.
mhm,
Um, yeah, I don't really know. And then the top of this picture here, um, a lot of that side of the building is used to assemble things and get things ready to
mhm.
put in on the south side of the building. So I think maybe we'll see something similar to that in Shanghai. Or maybe yeah, it's like the upper third is for them getting all the parts ready and some like pre-assembly, and then the middle is where it comes through.
Mhm.
And the left side, I'm not really sure how that's used. I think that might be to the a long structure where they make the enclosure and they
Mhm.
make the mounts that go on the enclosure and all that. I think that's maybe what that side of the building's used for.
Mhm.
Bradford, we had forgotten. Did you actually get a tour?
No.
No. I know you were hoping for one, but
Yeah, I didn't ask. They seem to not like unannounced guests, so
And you said there's a bunch of other buildings because on the Wikipedia article, they talk about some in Lathrop for Tesla, some 800,000 square foot building that's for parts. That there's some kind of other
There is a warehouse nearby, but it's unrelated to Megapack. It's the distribution center for parts
right,
is the
right.
one I'm aware of.
Brian, if you want, you can pull up Google Maps 700 Darcy or Tesla Megapack Factory,
Okay.
and you kind of put that building toward the right side, and I can kind of talk us through, what I understand the buildings to be. Yeah, but one of the first buildings basically runs like parts and logistics for parts for North America, and they make some parts for Model S and X. They even have a casting thing for Model S and X castings, little baby castings.
So for those who
So
don't know, Bradford spent quite a bit of time very, very deep diving into the Lathrop facility, sitting outside, counting the megapacks as they came out. And that is why he is, in my opinion, the authority on this facility. So there you go.
So zoom out very slightly. Um, yeah, so
oh, the
the one
distribution
that's
center up there, yeah.
so
Top.
on the left side where it's not too much, too much.
Okay.
It was perfect where you had it.
Okay.
On the left side where it says Prism right next to the highway, you see Tesla Motors. That's that original building. That smaller building. So yeah, just north of it north of it is that original building. That small building that's taller on the right side of it, that's that casting for the S and X parts. Those three buildings in the middle, Tesla owns. Oh, actually, the top one is Simwan. They make body parts for Tesla. I'm not sure if it's doors or just panels or door panels. Then the middle one is involved. with like those two are like Powerwall and supercharging. The south of that, and I think like Tesla is like taking over more of these buildings. Um, when I was there, they didn't yet have the couple buildings just south of the Megapack, but also that to the north, that really there's a very large building now.
Yeah, distribution center.
That's brand new. So even bigger parts center. There's tons of semi trailers around that. So that's a big parts warehouse for North America and logistics. And then north of that, we got one more where the building to the left right there, they use that as some storage for excess cars from Fremont. I think it's kind of a midway point. Lathrop is between Fremont, California, and Reno, Nevada. So there's one path through the mountains where Lathrop's in between there. So there's some logistics they're doing there, but basically like they're they're taking over that whole area. So yeah.
I also had was looking at uh, Tesla in Shanghai. So if we can get the actual address of the building, then hopefully this will update at some point. Then we'll have the actual sizes. So previously I had that photo where it looked like Tesla Gigafactory 3, the field wherever that was going, and there was a river, a thin river up top, and then there's I think a 6-lane road, 3 lanes in either direction, and it kind of curves slightly. So I was trying to find that on the maps here, but I could not. They said it was within 2 miles. wu, who did the videos of it, said within 2 miles. So I looked around on the 2-mile thing. I could not find anything here. But in terms of like things nearby, there are open fields. There are
So Brian, if
areas
you go back
there.
there a second,
Sure.
zoom in on the Tesla Gigafactory.
Yeah.
So the field and go in some more.
Yeah. So it's a Gigafactory here.
I think the field is just basically to the right there.
You think it's over here somewhere?
It's you see where the pinkish color is? I think it's just to the right of that.
Onto the right side here, like this one, or
No,
over
where it
here?
says Tesla Gigafactory.
Tesla Gigafactory, right?
Yeah, it's just to the right of that.
You think this field, so the Tesla Shanghai
Yeah.
factory is coming in there?
No, that's where the watermelon field was.
Okay. Okay, so there's some open areas here where it could be going in, and there's a railroad here. I think it looks like a railroad or something.
Could you show the work in progress for the Megapack factory in Shanghai? I want to ask Brian White. I want to call you Brian Wright because we got White and Wang.
Yeah.
So Brian White, you let's see. Yeah, go to that presentation, that work in progress for Megapactory Shanghai.
I got the wrong one up. Okay.
Brian White did extensive work looking at Giga Texas as it would go up, and color coding, percent complete, based off of how long certain structures were visible. Yeah, there we are. They're calling that 45% complete. How do you think about this, Brian White, when you think about percent complete and how fast they'll be done? China speed's totally different than Texas speed.
So when I saw this picture, it was already a few days old, and now it's weeks old. I would say 45% is about right. The grading takes less time in Shanghai because the ground is flat and level. You don't have to grade it, but you do have to get really serious footings in, which isn't too difficult. But they've got the footings in, all the foundations are in, all of the steel is vertical. At this point, I'd say what, half the roof is done. So within probably 2 weeks of this picture, the building was sealed off and loading in began. So I would say this picture, 45%, absolutely.
So they said it was 60%, but they didn't give a new picture. So the recent thing
Yeah.
was like a 2, 3 days ago, they said 60%, but no new picture of it, just a 45%.
I would agree that they're it's going to look like this, but with the roof on. So there's nothing left to see. They're just putting in all the equipment and, interior finishing, plumbing, wiring, all that. And then when they're partway done with that, they'll put in all the paving around it and it'll be, I mean, yeah, I'd say 60% today, without a doubt. I'd say that might even be sandbagged a bit. But we don't know the pace at which the equipment goes in. It's all straightforward equipment. It's not like they need to bring in a gigacasting from Italy that hasn't been built yet. This is all standard equipment that's kind of off the shelf. So I'd say 60% is probably an underestimate. I'm still saying maybe end of Q4, begin is sometime in Q1, this will be done.
Bradford, I
Let's go ahead and stop the share, Brian.
Bradford, I speculated many times off of your speculation, and I don't know whether you decided you were right or wrong. There was a thing that lifted the final, I think the final container that would lift it and put it up onto onto the bed of a trailer. And that you thought at one point that might have been the holdup from going at least to half production, but maybe to full production, that was a very specialized piece of equipment that had, I may be misquoting you completely.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, those are called the straddle loaders. They color them red at Lathrop. They lift up the Megapack. They take them down the ramp and they put them in their parking spot. And then once the semi is ready, they pick it up again and move it over the semi and drop it on top of the semi trailer that's got like a ton of axles that can carry that load. Yeah, they were at 3 initially, and they got, I think they got, or they at 2 or 3. I'm starting to forget now. And then they ordered like 3 more, so they were essentially like doubling their straddle loaders. Maybe they're at 2 and adding 4 more, but now they have a lot more. They had that huge quarter last quarter, so nearly 10 gigawatt hours from about averaging 4. The CFO's already warned us that it might be a little lumpy, so that we shouldn't expect 10 or close to 10 every quarter. It may be closer to, maybe it'll be 8. I'm curious how Wall Street reacts if we get a 6 gigawatt hour number on the second. So I'm curious what the reaction would be with that, because I feel like a big part of the boost in July in the stock was this huge Megapack number.
And so on the straddle loaders, my speculation then was that maybe this was a very unique, we talked about what's unique in terms of production versus what's not, what you can just go out and buy off the shelf versus what has to be custom made, and that these straddle loaders might have needed to be custom made. And that's why there was some delay in getting, because when you're on your first trip, I think when you learned about it, it seems to me that they were not going to arrive until, months and months and months later. And so that's why I speculated all that. Did we learn any more about those straddle loaders and whether that was a hang up, whether this could be something that has now been resolved in terms of the ramp in Shanghai?
So now I'm guessing, I think something like the straddle loaders are used at ports. So like next to Lathrop is the port of Stockton. you're basically lifting shipping containers, you're moving them places. And I think at the ports, they're more beefy, they're probably larger. They don't need them to be, you don't need to stack things like 3, 4 containers high at Lathrop. So you don't need something as big. You want to be able to get it into the bay doors easily. So it might have been a little bit of a custom thing that they were provided. Um, so that bottleneck would have been resolved October or so of last year, if that was the holdup.
Right. Okay, that
So
was
it was probably more related to batteries or power electronics or when the customers were able to take delivery. I'd say my hesitancy as far as us getting all googly-eyed about megapacks is a lot of these data centers, they seem to be headed toward nuclear. It's like nuclear, nuclear, nuclear. We want to do nuclear. We don't want to do natural gas, even if we don't have to burn it, which you can do in a fuel cell. Um, I think maybe where I get more optimistic is if the supply of these megapack batteries is sufficient and quick, then you know solar, wind, and battery is much faster to get in place than nuclear. Nuclear, we're still talking about 6 years. Whereas if the batteries are ready, we're talking like 2 years at most to get solar, wind, and batteries. And you're putting up these AI data centers. Speed matters. You don't want to build your data center 6 years from now. You want to do it to now. You want to do it right now, and you want to train your models.
So I'm quite familiar with nuclear power. I've talked to various CEOs and other people in the nuclear industry. Also advised a nuclear fusion company. Um, so on that, so one, the Microsoft just did a deal, 20-year deal with Constellation Energy, one of the big utilities. They restart the 3 Mile Island. There's two plants. One that, of course, had the accident in the 70s. The other one that was operating until 2019. So they can restart it. They can spend $1.6 billion to restart it. They want to get it operating by 2028. So this is something that's basically there. They just need to like refurbish it and get it operating again. And Microsoft is paying double the price for normal energy. So instead of like $65 per megawatt hour, they're paying like 130. And so that would basically work out to be about $870 million every year for 20 years in order to get that energy. So that's how desperate they are for that energy. And that's because of like the size of the AI data centers, where like the two that we're hearing about in North Dakota need 2 to 5 gigawatts. That 3 Mile Island facility only generates 870 megawatts. So you need two to maybe get the low end of that number for the big North Dakota facility, and then you need six in order to get to the 5 gigawatt. So you need to have a lot of solar and wind, and also for the existing solar and wind. China had a terawatt of solar, a terawatt of wind. So there's a backlog of unbuffered power around the world, where if you wanted to, like if I would have an AI data center, I can't have the power like up and down, up and down. Like basically you need like this, big monster UPS, power supply thing, stabilizing stuff, which is what the Megapack factory would be. And I'm also theorizing that, so into the nuclear, you could want it, but any like a really meaningful production would be in the 2030s, 2040s and beyond. So it would be like more thinking ahead to, okay, world power could like double by 2040, and then could go even further in the 2040, 50s, and that's when you need to be mass producing nuclear fission power if you want that to be a major part of the component. Even China making and working on 40 reactors a year total and trying to complete 8 a year, which is what they're doing. That is insufficient to the demand that was projected by Altimeter Capital and the others. So yes, but you definitely need to have a lot more solar and wind. That's the only option. These the Microsoft deal is just a nice to have, helping, but as a helper until you're basically making 50, 100 big size reactors every year, which has not happened. But I believe that will change now. Like there was a podcast with BG2, Bill Gurley, Brad Gerstner, who are two big VCs, talking, and they did one from Diablo Canyon, the California nuclear power plant, and then more recently, where they're basically saying the big difference now for nuclear will be that you will have the hyperscalers, the Googles, the Teslas, Amazon, Meta, as the end customer, instead of utilities. So you can go from a very conservative customer to a very aggressive spending and speed. So that goes for all of energy, because they're basically going to remake all of energy. It's going to be, if before, when we're talking about climate change and Master Plan Part 3, we're saying, okay, we're going to get rid of the dirty coal, the fossil fuel, and that was the case described where we need like 2.3 terawatts of energy storage per year. Now we're going to like make net new an insane amount of power for the AI data centers, like that 8,000 terawatt hours. Like the U.S. generates 4,000 terawatt hours and has each year for so basically more than the United States of power needs to be built. So it's like a lot of stuff coming in so that goes to the bull case. But
I did want to add one thing in before we close, which is that I looked it up while we were talking, and it is unclear to me if the IRA credit for battery manufacturing applies strictly for automotive, or if it would apply in this case. If anyone in the comments can shed light, I would appreciate that. Randy, go ahead.
My belief has always been, by the way, that it does apply to the storage as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
So all I was going to say is that from everything that I understand, listening to Elon and also listening to a podcast an interview the other day with the CEO of the energy division of General Electric, the TAM is just beyond anything, just almost what you're saying, Brian, Wang. The TAM on this energy need to stabilize grids and to also increase the amount of production is so enormous that you need all of it. You're going to need every bit of it, including oil and natural gas. He said, the General Electric CEO said, we're talking about 20 more years of maximum gas production before we reach peak gas, according to General Electric, which of course is a pretty major company when it comes to this kind of stuff. So I don't think we have anything to worry about in terms of the TAM, but to your point, Bradford, you were talking about the timing seems to be the biggest issue. This is the thing I would like to get more information on is, can these guys give Tesla? I'd like to hear this from Elon. I'd like to hear an hour-long discussion from Elon about what is the cat and mouse, what is the chicken and egg in terms of when the demand is there and the supply isn't. And so you can't build the supply because there's no demand. And when the demand can't be made, you can't even have the demand starting because they can't trust the supply. This is what I've heard is the real issue in terms of really getting the ramp going. And I'd love to get more color on that.
Okay. Oh, thanks for listening to my observations and stuff and confirming a lot of what I was thinking.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this to the fore, Brian, and the hard work on your side, and appreciate you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right. And thank you all. Thank you, Brian White, for coming as well. And we will put this up actually everywhere. You're going to find this video everywhere because it's an important video. So
okay.
Bye for now. It's been great talking to you.